Back from the dead. Back from the dead. Back from the dead.
Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to the channel. It is yours truly, Krystal. We were having some technical difficulties tonight. This is Paranormal Podcast for those of you that are brave enough to join the circle. And I'm going to bring in my lovely co-host, Eilfie. Where have you been? Hi.
Oh my God. It's been like forever, eternity, hasn't it?
I know. It's like, where's everybody going anymore? You know what I mean? You were so sweet too this summer. Like, Eilfie knew everything I was going through, and she would just hit like random texts like, hey, are you okay? Are you alive?
Checking in. You still good? Still kicking?
You still there? Okay, I'm just making sure. Yeah, Eilfie's so sweet. So we were just talking about this, which is so fun. Back in March, I think, I had told Eilfie, I'm really thinking that maybe it's time for like a big change in my life. And I think I want to move to the East Coast. And Eilfie was like, where are you going to move to? You know? And I was like, I don't know. I'm thinking maybe PA or like, somewhere like in New England. And Eilfie's in PA, and she was like, oh my God, tell me where you want to move. And I'm going to research the haunted spots in those cities. I was like, yes. So Eilfie's been so sweet. And then I think like over the summer, I got even more serious about moving. And now we're always talking like, oh my God, I can't wait till I'm out there living. Yeah. And there's all this haunted stuff we can go do. Eilfie knows, all the fun PA like haunted stuff, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, PA is chock full of it and everything. The necessities. You first check out what the haunted place is, and then you find about the house and the important stuff.
The important stuff, yeah. I know we were just talking about a lot Appalachian Mountains, obviously, and I didn't know that up in PA, there's like underground tunnel systems too, you said.
Oh yeah, there's big caving system, and then also on top of that, you have the mines and everything. So we have pretty much a honeycomb going on here.
Wow, that's crazy. And there's probably all kinds of bats and creatures and God knows what's down there, right?
We got creepy crawlies. I mean, it's the mountains. We have all sorts of creatures wandering around the mountains.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I can't wait to be out by Eilfie. So I'm narrowing it down. We were just chatting about that too. I'm narrowing it down. I think I'm still looking at the eastern side of PA and New York. I really don't want to be more than 2 to 3 hours from New York. Just because if I I don't know if I'm going to still be, I work out of LA a lot, especially over the summer. I ended up having a lot of gigs out in LA. So I need to be able to access it easily through airport or whatever, you know what I mean? So I can't totally be out in the middle of nowhere, but I cannot wait to be East Coast with you guys. Like I am counting it down. I'm so excited. So yeah, plan is hopefully get out there and road trip it around. And hopefully, obviously I get to see Eilfie while I'm out there road tripping it. And I don't know, maybe we can go to like an asylum while we're out there or something,
There's a few to go, and oh my goodness, you're going to experience like an East Coast winter and everything.
I know. Well, yeah, I don't know what the difference is going to be because Colorado can be pretty brutal, lots of blizzards. So I don't know. I've talked to Kat. Like, I think that's why I don't want to move so far north with Kat. It gets a little bit more cold where she is in New Hampshire. It's a little bit closer to Canada.
It gets icier. Like it's a lot more like icy, cold weather that you'll end up with. We do get like every once in a while flurries and whatnot. It can have brutal moments, but I mean, not quite like what I've heard about with like the mountains on mountains you were telling me about.
Colorado can be rough. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I grew up there, so I'm used to it. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, there would be times a blizzard would roll in and it would shut the city down for like 2 weeks. Like
I keep it's like The Shining. It's like no, you're stuck. There's no way.
Luckily, I lived in like it was like it's a suburb for sure, but like the suburbs are like on the foothills is what they call them. So I was on the west side, and like you can get as much snow there as anywhere else. You know what I mean? So. Yeah. Luckily in the city, even though I was in a suburb, they really do try to keep the snow off the ground or like melt it or whatever. But it would get bad. I mean, like, so I'm 4-wheel drive, like, you know, so I feel like if I can live there and like mountain drive, I think I'm going to be good with the East Coast. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. If you dealt with Colorado weather the way it is, you're good.
Yeah.
You're gold.
Yeah. I've heard it's not quite as bad as as dealing with that, you know. So this stream is kind of cool. I'm kind of excited about this. We've been wanting to talk about this for quite a while, and this is kind of inspired from TikTok, especially because we've been seeing for months all these random stories pop up about the Appalachian Mountains, the Smoky Mountains, obviously starting in Tennessee, rolling all the way up northward. And, you know, of course, we've all known the stories and the lore, and we're going to share all that stuff with you guys. But I think the part that really sold us was seeing the people have their, like, personal encounters. Don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And these are people who live in the mountains. It is, when you see them on TikTok, they're basically pointing out, here's my backyard. There's the woods.
Isn't this ghost mug cute, by the way? I think got it at Walmart for like $5. It's adorable. I love mugs. I have a mug problem. So, hi guys. I see you saying hi on all the platforms. Hi guys. I'm not typing on platforms tonight, but I see you. Hello everybody. Valerie, Anna's there. Shadow, the hair, baby fire. So okay. So my dad owned property in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. I don't think I told you this yet.
Okay.
And I had to go there a few years ago. He ended up getting sick, and so I had to go like check on the house and all that stuff. And I went with my mom, and we didn't know what to expect. And he basically lived in this little town in Tennessee, and I'm just going to say it was like unsafe. I'm just going to be honest and say it was like unsafe. And it was unsafe because you like, there's different types of people, and it was like the mountain people, you know what I mean? That like are very comfortable living alone and isolated. And I think that after a while living like that, you get a little weird. Am I wrong? I mean, I'm not trying to like offend anybody. You know what I mean?
Well, it's usually, those are the smaller towns you'll go by where if you spend some time, they know everyone in the town. So like when you're going through, they know you are not a local and everything. So and there's weirdness usually with like people coming into town and everything. So you can see where it's like usually a little hesitant, like, we're friendly, really. We're just visiting. It's okay.
Well, and in this town, it was probably only 200 people-ish. And it's literally in the, like on the edge of this. Oh yeah, very small. And so I don't know, I'm just going to be honest. I'm just going to tell it how it is in the story because so I'm out there, and of course I look like I'm from Vegas, you know. They're like, "Oh, you're from Vegas, like you're a showgirl cuz like the glitter on your eyes." I'm like, "No, I'm not a showgirl." Like, you know what I mean? No, I'm not a showgirl. But they started watching me, and so I kind of befriended the sheriff. And because I was a little nervous, because you just don't know the mix of people. It's like a mixed bag, you know? And I kind of ended up finding out, like, the sheriff had, like, you know, not the best intentions. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was very, it was very Hollywood movie-ish.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, but it was still better to be friends with him. You get where I'm going with it? You know what I mean? Like, you still want him on your side, but you need to, like, watch, you know, all corners.
Yeah, you don't want the local, you don't want the local law on, like, you don't want to be on the bad side of it.
You don't.
And
he was that, small town, you know, like super small town, 200 people or less, you know. But so he was like, and he was this kind of sheriff where he's like, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. You know, your daddy, he's in the hospital. You know, if you need anything, you give me a holler. Here's my cell phone number. You know, you just give me a holler and I'll come on down here and I'll get you." And you know, so it was that friendly. You know what I mean? Like, we're in Vegas. No one's going to. I live in a city with 8 million people. If you ask someone for their phone number, they're going to be like, I don't effing think so. You know what I mean?
You're like, what's the scam? What's the deal? How much are you wanting?
Right. And if you call the sheriff, he's like, "I'm going to make a formal report. I'm not going to give you my cell phone number," type of small town. You know what I mean? Like, so the sheriff, it was interesting though, because like they had a Walmart there, and I'm telling you, like the smallest Walmart in the world, because like there's 200 people in town. You know what I mean?
And most likely that is probably the only shopping center in all of the town. Like the Walmart is it.
It was the only grocery store. It was literally it was the only grocery store. And by the way, it was very far from my father's house because I mean they're spread. You know what I mean? When we've been to those haunted towns. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so when I would walk in Walmart, and by the way, I tried to dress down. You know what I mean? I was like, I know I'm in a small town. Like, don't go in goth girl, you know, like, and it's still, people just stare. You know what I mean? Like, they just knew. And so anyway, the sheriff was like, well, honey, I'm just going to give you, you know, a few little tips because I know your daddy's house. And he was like, you know, the people on this side, they're real nice. You can trust them. But the people on that side, you don't want to be friends with them. And I'm like, okay.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know what's going on. And it was interesting because, and the sheriff also said, you know, honey, you're a young lady. You know, I don't know how old you are because it's none of my business. But he was like, you really shouldn't be down here in Smoky Mountain by yourself at night. And then I was piqued, you know what I mean? I was like, because
I think, yeah, okay. I'll be like, why?
Well, I already kind of knew.
I mean, I understand why.
You do, and like you get the vibe. I mean, for God's sake, Eilfie, you've done the coolest stuff. Like you've literally investigated Mothman. You know what I mean? Like you know what it is to get down in those barracks and like do weird things. And so you're driving through this town, my dad, and to get to his house, it's like literally like over the river and through the woods. Like you're literally like going over a mountain, like yeah. And you're going like, I had to go over a river. I had to go through like a huge opening of trees, like a meadow, like bridges. Like, I mean, and you're like, wow, like the houses are so spread apart. You know what I mean?
This is what we call in PA the murder road. When it's the dark roads with the trees coming in at you.
It was.
You're like, oh God, we're going to die.
No, my mother, because my mom was with me, and she was like, we need to not be here after dark. Like, there's just not, like, the energy feels off. Something's wrong. We're in, like, how did your father live down here by himself? You know what I mean? Like, it's not safe. And so it was.
Especially if you don't know how to get out of there real fast. Like, once it gets dark, it gets even worse trying to drive anywhere out of those places.
And no lights. You're talking no lights. Like, there's no, but like, they're not dirt roads. Like, these were paved roads, but like, there's no lights. Like, you're in the mountains, period. I don't think people realize how dark that is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm talking pitch black. Like, like sometimes you can't even see the moonlight because the trees are so big, it's blocking the moonlight.
Oh, yeah. I think we forget because it's a lot of times you forget that there's a lot of light pollution from either other houses or towns nearby that, like, or even highways that kind of come in. But, yeah, these are the backwoods where, unless your headlights are on, there is no light whatsoever, and you are in the darkness.
And you're still going over the river through the woods, like the weird, you know, you're in the mountains, hilly roads. You can't see where the turn is coming from on the road because it's so dark. Like, so you have to drive really slow. Plus there's, wildlife. Like you're worrying about other things, bears. You're worried about deer, you know, like you can kill yourself hitting a deer. You know what I mean? And so I was. This is the funny story, and I have to tell you this because I feel like it sets up the atmosphere for, like, you know, I'm in the haunted Smoky Mountains in my dad's house alone with my mom, you know?
Like, we haven't even gotten to the paranormal part.
No, we're not. This is not even the paranormal part. Like, I swear to God, it's not. Like, that's scary. So we're driving through, and there looked like there was this building kind of off to the right side that looked totally, like, crisp, like burnt to a crisp, you know? And I asked the sheriff, and I said, and the deputy was with him, and I said, you know, why is the building like crispy? Like, did it get burned down? Like, what's the story? Like, you know, and I'm asking because in Vegas, if something like that happens, you have to tear it down through like city ordinance. Like you have certain things you have to abide by to the city. You can't just leave it standing. And that looked like it had happened a while ago. He was like, oh, honey, you know what? You know, the Piggly Wiggly down the street, they were getting like more, you know, business, and there was competition with the owners. So one night the family of the Piggly Wiggly, they just came over here and set it ablaze so that they wouldn't have any more competition. And I was like,
wow.
And I'm sitting here like, and I'm in this town with these people that are setting their businesses on fire. You know, you get where I'm saying? Like, what?
Yeah.
True story, true story. And so then I go down into the house in the wooded area, and and by the way, my dad had one of the biggest houses in town. It was huge. Um, and the nice people across the street were really nice. And they were like worried about my dad. And then the people that he told me to stay away from, I kind of just wanted to like keep my eye out and watch. Because I'm sitting here like, by the way, these houses are not close together, obviously. Like, these are very spread apart, right? Because you're in the Smoky Mountains. There's lots of land. I think my dad's house was on like 2 or 3 acres. I can't remember how much it was.
Okay.
And the people he told me to stay away from, he says, like, to stay away from these people. And I'm like, okay, well, like, we're in the Smoky Mountains, so it's just not safe anyway. And I realized they don't even have windows in their house. There's no windows, there's no glass, there's no screens, and they literally just have like tablecloths hanging up for like curtains. And the part that confused me was, if you're living in the Smoky Mountains with creatures, why wouldn't you want to make sure you have windows in? Like Bigfoot's gonna just take one step right into your kitchen, Boo Bear, and like it's all over with, you know what I mean? Or maybe Bigfoot lives there. You know what I mean? Maybe that is actually Bigfoot's house. So, I know. So we were down there. It started to get nightfall. And let me tell you, it is strange in the Smoky Mountains at night. If you've never experienced it, it is pitch black. It is silent. And you can tell when strange movement is happening because nature reacts. That's the only way I can explain it. And it's creepy. And, like, even the sheriff was like, there's just certain places in town, honey, that if we get a 911 call, we're not coming.
Oh, wow.
And he didn't tell me that, but, like, it was a big hint to me of, like, if you get yourself in trouble, we may not come down here, because it was a ways out of town, like where my dad's house was. So, anyway.
That sounds like the note of, like, we'll come down, but probably at daylight, long after.
Oh, he kept saying, he's like reiterating, he's like, you either get back into town at your hotel at dark nightfall, or you stay in your daddy's house and you don't come out. That's what he said verbatim.
You lock all the doors.
Yeah, and he was like, lock the doors. He goes, if anybody comes to the door, or anybody knocks at the door, or anybody knocks at the window, doesn't matter, don't answer it. If someone's screaming saying that they need help, he goes, nobody's gonna be out in these woods pitch black at night needing help. You don't answer the door.
Oh, damn.
And I was like, I was trying to hint, like, tell me more, because I didn't want to tell him who I was. Like, I'm a paranormal, right? You know what I mean? But he wouldn't. He was like, no. He's like, you just know. If you've experienced, you just know. And I was like, okay. So my mom and I made sure we did not get stuck down there at nightfall. That's for sure. Because he was even worried about, like, don't have car trouble down there. Like, we had a rental car, but, like, just don't get caught down here. So anyway, that was another part that started my fascination. But Eilfie and I, in particular, we really started getting these TikToks popping up on our stuff. Cat's on. Hi, Cat. We love you. Cat said immediately no. That's what Cat said. Immediately no. Kat, I think I called you, didn't I, when I was there? I swear. Eilfie, I swear this happened. Like, I called her and I was like, something's wrong with this town. I need to get out of here. Jesus, it's not safe.
Oh, God. Yeah. Well, especially if the sheriff is giving you that many warnings, you're like, okay, there's definitely, like, a difference between slightly, like, backwoods, not big population, but this sounds more like horror movie level of once the sun goes down, you're on your own.
Yes.
Good luck.
Yes. and the worry that I had, or like that, the way I was interpreting him, Kat said, yes, you did call me. Jesus. See, so this is true. But basically the sheriff made it sound like, yes, don't call us after dark. I'm warning you now. And
just don't bother.
It was this energy of, like, it's not just the creatures in the woods, but it's also the people. It's everything. You know what I mean? Like, it's everything, and I'm warning you, and that's it. And I'm like, okay, great. So I didn't get to experience being in the Smoky Mountain Zone. I asked my dad about it, too, because he lived there by himself. That was, like, their vacation home for my stepmom and stuff. And I was like, he's like, he believed in paranormal. He believed in the other side. He believed he encountered stuff. You know what I mean? He also grew up in, like, very rural farms in Oklahoma and the South, and he experienced things there too. And his answer, like, he would never really give me definitive, like, conversations, but it was just like, oh yeah, there's stuff in the woods. Oh yeah. Like, you just don't mess with it. And I would be like, well, like, what is it? Like, you think, like, is it Bigfoot? Is it other creatures? He's like, it's just everything. It's UFOs, it's alien. He's like, it's everything. I'm like, but what's everything? I need to know. I need to know.
And the big thing is I believe knows too. It's one of those, like, it's all this weird stuff, but it's one of those, like, all you need to know, like, the mindset usually is all you need to know is don't go out there, keep the doors locked, don't go following after lights or people talking, like, just don't get into it because you might not come back. That's why they probably look at you going like, why do you need more information? You don't need more information.
I'll give you more. I'll give you even more tea. I'll give you even more tea. So my dad, you know, obviously he's staying in this house by himself, and I'm freaked out for him because I'm like, now that I've seen where he's at, I'm like, why the hell would you want to live out in the middle of nowhere in the Smoky Mountains like this? Like, who does this? It must remind him of his childhood or something. You know what I mean? Like, but he was like, oh yeah, you know, like, he knew we were staying in a hotel, but he's like, if you want to stay at the house, you know, feel free to stay at the house. And he was like, you know, listen to the sheriff. And by the way, the reason I had called the sheriff initially was I got lost and I couldn't find my way out of the Smoky Mountains. Because once again, this is GPS doesn't work. There's no, you know what I mean? Like, so I called the non-emergency line for help because I had no idea where I was. So he came out and helped me and then, like, showed me, you know, the direction, whatever. Anyway, so the sheriff was really great. But my dad was like, yeah, listen to the sheriff, you know, and if you decide to stay at my house, you know, don't answer the door if anybody comes because it's nobody there. And like, I'm like, but what if it's somebody that needs help? He's like, nope, you don't answer the door. If somebody needs help, you just tell them you'll call the police and they'll be there. And I'm like, that's so creepy to me. And then he was like, and at every door, you know, like underneath the floorboard, like if something happens, I have a shotgun at every door.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, excuse me, like, what? You know what I mean? First of all, I don't shoot guns, so I was like, I don't even know what to do with one. First of all, if there was an emergency, I am the dumb blonde in the horror movies that will die. I will trip and I will die 100%. Like, I already know that about myself, and it's fine. But that's how serious my dad was too. He's like, oh yeah, I have shotguns at every door. You know, so like, you're safe. And I'm like, Jesus, Lord, we don't live like that in Vegas, okay? This is a 24-hour city. I can go shopping at the mall at 1 a.m. on the strip if that's what I want to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. But, and they all reiterated, like, if someone comes to the door, like, it didn't feel like it'd be human, to be honest. Like, it was something mimicking human, but nobody would ever give me more information. It drove me crazy because the paranormal side of me is just, like, enthralled with these stories. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's where we're at with this. We're gonna start. This is gonna be a good stream. So Eilfie and I have been sending each other back and forth all this content. We've been binge watching TikToks, and I did a bunch of research on it. So for my dad, it's, you know, if you don't know where the Appalachian Mountains or, you know, Smoky Mountains sort of starts, it's a huge mountain range, predominantly like to the edge of Tennessee, South Carolina, and North Carolina, right? Isn't that where that's at? And kind of goes upwards into, like, you know, West Virginia for sure, and then swoops into, like, where Eilfie's at, like, PA area. And how far are they from you, or do they go, like, straight through the area that you're at?
From what I can see, it kind of goes straight through because the Smoky Mountains also kind of blend in to the Appalachian Mountains, and that whole kind of, like, strip goes all the way up. Big chunk of it goes through PA, and then all goes up through, I think, all the way up to Maine and even into Canada area. Yeah,
too. It misses Cat. It misses Concord, Cat. Good for you. Good for you, boo. It does go through Vermont though, and Kat had told me, it's so funny because there's one city, so everybody knows by now that I am 100% certain I'm moving to the East Coast, right? Eilfie is literally my witchy sister. She lives in central PA. I want to live near Eilfie. Kat is in New Hampshire. I want to live near Kat. So I'm looking at PA and New York. I've been considering moving there with them since about March, right? And so I've been checking out all these cities on the East Coast, trying to decide where I want to be at. You know, I've even like looked at Salem, Mass, but I think it's a little too close to the coast for me. But there's one city that I love in Vermont, and it's called Woodstock, Vermont. And the reason I love it is it just looks like Halloween town. Like literally just looks like Halloween town.
Okay.
And Kat was like, okay, you know, there's a couple cities in Vermont, but like everything else you need to avoid. And I'm like, why? And she's like, hills have eyes. Hills have eyes everywhere in Vermont. And I'm like, okay, Kat, okay, I get it. And I started researching more about Vermont, and that's when I found out that actually a lot of like UFO stuff happens there, and black-eyed children. And it's interesting because that all goes back to the Appalachian Mountains moving right through like the whole freaking state of Vermont. And I didn't put two and two together. So I just find that really interesting now that I've been doing my geography, you know what I'm saying, from moving. Although I think that it's more of the, I mean, I know you're saying PA has had its haunted stuff, but it does seem to me that it's more of the low populated areas where this stuff is at. So like Tennessee, West Virginia, Vermont, like very low populated areas, like deep into the mountains. I also didn't realize, like my dad used to tell me he loved this area because my mom's Cherokee and I'm part Cherokee. And my dad loves like Native American lore. Like he fell in love with my mom because she's indigenous. He's always appreciated culture. He was really actually excited to have a child that was half indigenous. I know that sounds crazy, but he was. He just loves it. And so he used to get really deep involved in all of the indigenous lore that's a part of like Tennessee. If you trace back like the Cherokees, they go back to like Georgia, South Carolina, that whole area. And I was interested in seeing some of this haunted lore. It does go back to the Cherokees and Native American indigenous lore. And I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. So now that Eilfie and I were able to do research, yes, there is a Bigfoot. I'm sure several that, you know, people have supposedly spotted, but there's a lot more that resides in here. And I feel like we have a lot to cover. Were you fascinated by this list?
Oh yeah, totally. Like, I mean, definitely the big thing is Bigfoot or not, but there are all these other crypto creatures that are just like, some of them I've heard, some of them I'm like, oh, that's new to me, that are just very fascinating. Like you said, it makes a lot of sense, especially in the lower populated areas in the mountains, because I feel like there's still a lot of these mountain area that we're talking about that hasn't yet been fully
Oh my God, no.
explored.
No
I mean,
way.
we may have like satellite pictures of them, but like people actually going into them, probably not as much.
Mm-hmm. It's fascinating because a lot of the stories that you hear on TikTok, and then even when Eilfie and I were doing research on like, you know, blogs and like YouTube videos, whatever, people all say the same things, which are whatever creature you run into, they are able to mimic you, mimic your family, mimic the voice of a humanoid, and they're not human. So then, you know, my brain's always like, okay, so that means it's either aliens or Bigfoot. But no, it's a lot more than all of that. So, and it's always so hush-hush, and I think it's hush-hush because maybe they don't know which creature they're encountering. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, like you said, and it seems like quite a few of them are mimics and shapeshifters, but I think it's almost one of those things where I notice that they don't want to draw attention to it. Like, if you start talking about it and you're in the area, you don't want to kind of...
Yeah, they're like, somebody just said that in
notice.
chat. Actually, somebody said on TikTok, you hear them say, if you hear something at night, no, you didn't. If you hear something call your name at night, no, you didn't. If you hear someone following you on the trail, you don't run in fear. You walk hastily away, and you don't give off fear because they can like sense the fear or something. Which, look, let me tell you something. That's how I would die, okay? I am the dumb blonde in the horror movie. I am Paris Hilton in House of Wax, okay? If they told me not to run, I would be absolutely running, like 100%. You know what I mean? Like, whoa! I'm not good with catastrophes, like disasters, which is why I'm afraid. Eilfie I swear, Eilfie, my biggest goal in my life is to get the series signed and go investigate Mothman with Eilfie. She has to be there, okay? It doesn't count without Eilfie, okay? And like, I'm so scared he's gonna come get me because like I'm not smart when it comes to crypto, you know?
Yeah, I'm more worried about not so much Mothman, but you falling into a marsh because there's marsh and swamp around there. I don't need to have to.
Cat, can you see me in my 5-inch goth girl heels walking through the marshes of like West Virginia? I'm gonna fall for sure, 100%. It's fine. You know what I mean?
All I request though is could we at least make sure to do it in warmer weather? Because when I was last out there, it was very cold.
Yeah, no. Don't worry. I got you. Yeah, my ultimate goal, Eilfie. She's gonna tour guide us into the swamps of Mothman, the pits of Mothman's house, and Kat is gonna crochet him a hat and some gloves. That's the plan. So
Ghost Girl Diaries becomes a newfound footage.
I'm telling you, if this series gets signed, it's going to be the best paranormal series ever because of what we have. We have the best ideas between the three of us. Oh my God. Cat's laughing. So let's start with the first sort of creature. Do you want to cover the first creature? Because I think this is fascinating because once again, we're hearing the stories on TikTok, but nobody's telling us what's out there. And the only thing that my brain can go to is either aliens, UFOs, black-eyed children, or Bigfoot. And it's more, guys. Supposedly there's a list. Do you want to do the first one?
The Wampus Beast?
The beast. The black feline beast.
Which actually, when I read that, it sounded very interesting because we still, like, in our own mountains and everything, we still get reports about mountain lion stuff, which technically speaking shouldn't be in our mountains anymore. Like, we used to have mountain lions and everything, but they were driven out or killed off. We're not sure. I'm not sure which.
What was that? Like, they were driven off or killed. We're not sure, but whatever. They're dead. It's fine.
Oh, we used to have Nittany Lion Mountains, but then unfortunately we then apparently went and hunted them all because yay mankind.
Oh, really? We have cougars, mountain lions in Denver. And we get them in Vegas, actually, on the outskirts. I live in Summerlin, and we get them every once in a while. A mountain lion comes hanging down in the streets, literally Vegas.
Oh,
like,
joy.
Yeah.
We have to deal with these bears coming down from the mountains.
Ugh. We had those in Colorado, too. Those are scary.
Mm-hmm.
They actually walk into the Stanley Hotel all the time, black bears, brown bears. Yeah, they do.
Oh, wow.
They'll just walk right in, and then you see all the staff screaming at everybody, like, duck, run. And, like, the bear just walks through, and they have to wait till it leaves. They're smart.
Nose yawn out or something.
Yeah.
So this one is a large, black, feline-like creature. So it's, like, cat-like, but not necessarily a cat. And it's spotted around the Pleasant County, West Virginia. They call it the Wampus Beast. They said it's about the size of a male lion, about 500 to 600 pounds, with massive paws. They have a strong odor, like a wet dog or skunk. So actually, that sounds kind of like, I think it was in
Swamp ape. Swamp ape.
Yeah, swamp ape is what I was thinking. Like that very, very, very potent smell that you cannot miss.
Wow.
So it's like, oh, joy.
And this is in Pleasant County, West Virginia, which is also an area that Mothman is spotted too. So West Virginia must be a hot spot for all these creatures, which is interesting.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, is this, like you say, is this alien? Is this a crypto creature, like something we haven't yet discovered, technically, or even recorded?
Have you you've been to West Virginia? Did you investigate? Yeah, you did. What did you think? I've been there too. What did you think of the energy there?
It's interesting. It definitely has a very strange vibe about it, but it's not unpleasant. It's just I'm trying to figure out how
it feels like portals to me or something. It's it's not bad. It's just it feels like unfamiliar,
like a way station or something.
Well, I drove through there, and I went from like DC. I was in like Delaware, like northern Maryland's beautiful. If you've never been there, it's just especially fall. Oh my God, Northern Maryland's beautiful. But yeah, we drove through West Virginia and then we were in PA, and it was weird. Like literally you crossed the line to PA and it was completely different energy from West Virginia. I don't know how to explain it. You would only know if you've been to West Virginia and you've experienced it. It's just, it feels like it's not from here. I don't really know how to explain it.
No, I totally get what you mean, because there's definitely been times when I've gone, not just in West Virginia, but you feel, it's almost like, I guess the closest thing to describe it is like, you know how if you're coming down from mountains, there's that pressure change that happens.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's that almost energetic pressure change of like, you sort of realize like, it doesn't feel like it just did a half hour ago. What just we crossed the border.
And the decibel, and I don't want to say it's like, because I've been to places where there's negative decibels when you're hearing, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But like the decibels, the vibration, I don't know how to explain this unless you're in paranormal and you know what I mean? But like the decibels in West Virginia are different. Like the whole area is vibrating at a different level. I can't even explain to you what that means. I don't know what that means. It'd be interesting to get like a geographical surveyor to go in there and like do different. Like you said, literally you go through that border to PA and it's completely fine, and you're just like, I'm confused. It was literally like a 10-minute drive. It is. There's another area I've been like that. It's like northern LA. It's a city called Simi Valley. I don't know if anyone's ever been there, but Simi Valley is it's a very well-known, popular bougie area that a lot of celebrities keep their like horses stabled in Simi Valley.
Okay.
And if you're driving, and it's not that far from LA if you look at the map, it's just like north and past the valley, but you drive into Simi Valley and there's like, because I've been there several times, there's like this area that says like, Simi Valley, and you see like the hill. The second you pass that sign, it's the same thing. So I don't know. It's got to be an energy thing. I don't know. It's weird. It's just weird. If you know, you know. Eileen's on here saying yes. I know what you're saying about it. She says she knows the different energies. She says that it's actually she's experienced that in Virginia too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in LA, the valley just can have its own strange energy all.
You haven't. I told you haven't been to LA since.
It's been a minute.
But Rona, really, I've been there quite a few times this summer. Don't know how that happened. It's fine. I've been working at LA again. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I haven't been there since Rona happened, and oh man, it's the only way I can describe it is that it looks and feels like The Walking Dead, LA. Mm-hmm. And it breaks my heart to say that because I always thought eventually I'd move back to LA. I really did, because I loved living there. I loved my time there. Obviously, I'm still working out of there. I will never move there. I don't know how it's going to get fixed. The homeless population is unbelievable. It's just like every street you go down is just like either homeless people. And it's sad. I'm not saying it's not sad. But there's also just RVs packed, like back to back to back to back of just, 20 people living in an RV because everyone lost their homes from COVID. And it's sad, but I don't know how they're going to fix it. And it's like they're living in communities like The Walking Dead. Like they protect each other, which they should. You know what I mean? But like, and the city can't kick them out because there's nowhere for them to go. I've heard Skid Row is like 30 or 40 blocks massive now. I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's really big.
Even bigger. Okay.
Oh yeah, I've heard it's huge. So yeah, it's just sad. But which you're right. Now the energy in LA has changed a lot for sure. For sure.
It's a strange thing, especially for a place you think it should be so big and glitz and glamour, and then you see the other side of it. It's just like
it's changed the filming world too. It's weird because I used to live there and I used to film. Obviously, I was a producer there, and it's changed that too. It's really weird. I can't really describe it. Like they can't film in certain areas like they used to because of the homelessness. It's just changed like the demographics, I guess, of everything. And people are moving studios. They're actually talking about building more studios out here in Vegas to like make up for that. Yeah, there's some strange things going in. I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be interesting to see because the next 10 years or so is going to tell us what happens, because it's just, you can't recover with that Well, LA was built in the 60s, 70s. There's nowhere else for anyone to build. So you can't build like low income housing for all these people to help them. So there's literally just nowhere for anyone to go. So it's crazy. It's sad. But it changed. In fact, I'm going to have a guest host on with me, my girlfriend Ashley. She was filming with me in LA this summer. She's going to come on in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to talk about our experience in LA so that everybody can talk about it. But yeah, so yeah, if you know, if the energy in the area changes, you just know. And which is so strange because I wasn't even in West Virginia very long. I was probably only there for a day. And I felt it felt almost slow-mo. I don't really know how to describe it. Like maybe you're walking through water, or like the energy, like the vibrations are so high. Is that a good way to explain it?
Yeah, actually, I can see that. Yeah, I see what you mean. Because I know in some ways, like, especially if you go anywhere near the town with Mothman and everything. I can't remember the town now off the top of my head.
Point Pleasant, right? Point Pleasant.
Thank you. Yeah, Point Pleasant. It's a town that's on the rebound recovery and everything, because it was originally, like, I believe, a industrial working town, and then that slowed down and everything. But because of Mothman and the movie and the book and everything, and people's interest in the UFOs and whatnot, that has kind of brought the town back to life, I feel like, at least in the last few years I saw. But it, at the same time, it always seemed to be, that water slowness, but almost like trapped in a time period. Like it never...
Bubble warp almost or something?
Yeah. Never moved forward into the modern era necessarily. Like once you cross the bridge into Point Pleasant, it just like, you kind of entered into a different time zone.
It's true, because that area, it was like colonial, but it's weird because since it's a port, it's still modern. Yeah, you're right. I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. So, which also, if you haven't been to West Virginia, lots of mountains. Like, I mean, you drive through the highways and it's just mountains, like all the way up. So I can see how creatures could live there because it's just packed full of like miles and miles of trees and just brush. Mm-hmm. So now this is one I didn't know about. The next one is Wolfman. So this is in more like Kentucky, and it's specifically in Wolfe County, Kentucky. I don't know if you guys, have you been to Kentucky before? Did you get to go to Bobby Mackey's or anything?
I have not gone to that yet. That was on my list. I think I've been through Kentucky, but I can't remember if I've been in Kentucky for a long period of time. It's been a minute.
I think I spent about a week there or so, 4 or 5 days. And I actually don't mind the energy in Kentucky. Lexington's beautiful. It's very historic. Mm-hmm. And then the time of year that I was there, which was like September, I swear the hills and the mountains looked like Avatar. It's the only way I can describe it. Is like the fog was raising and like you couldn't see the top of the mountains, but then they were like peeking over the fog. You know what I mean? Like it was very Avatar. Beautiful, like blue, lots like green, like beautiful hills, like movie-esque. Like it really is beautiful. I didn't get that. Kentucky didn't feel the same as West Virginia, where it feels very like bubbled, but I can definitely see how something could be in Kentucky too, because you go to the populated areas and it's just like normal, like you said, like Point Pleasant, like modern, like Lexington, like although it's very historic, they have a historic district. It's populated. And then you go to the not populated areas, like where Bobby Mackey's is, and you're like, whoa, this town is like frozen. Like nothing has happened here for like 100 years, like literally, And so this Wolfman is part of Wolfe County, Kentucky. If you ever get a chance to go to Kentucky, especially in September, really try, because it's different. It's a different place, and I've been to a lot of places. So basically, they believe this Wolfman is about 500 pounds. He stands taller than like somewhat of 7 feet. He is bipedal, so 2 feet. He has similar wolf fur. And when he's been seen or spotted, they basically explain him as like being like a bear on 2 feet or a gorilla on 2 feet. Except he moves with like the elbow motion, if you know what I'm saying. And it's believed that he lives in caves in surrounding areas since maybe like the 1970s is when the sort of image of him started becoming reported.
Which sounds like a much more recent sighting of any kind of cryptid, honestly, because some of these sound more like they've been seen for almost like a century or so, but this is a much more recent one. This has only been the last like 50 years.
Well, and I get really fascinated with those specifically, and I have theories on this. It's just theories. Obviously, we can't prove it. I don't know how you prove it, but like for example, when you see an uprise in chupacabra in like Texas or and I'm not talking about the coyotes that have mange, okay? I'm not talking about those videos. I'm talking about like the actual chupacabra where they don't see him, but they find their animals with like 2 punctures and like drained of blood. That's what I'm talking about. Or like Puerto Rico or like Florida. So when those uprisings, have you ever noticed like all of a sudden you'll get like 10 reports of like chupacabra, like my farm animals have been, you know, mutilated, and then all of a sudden it disappears. My theory, which is where I think you could apply it to the Wolfman, is like extraterrestrial pets.
Oh.
Like extraterrestrials come down, they drop, you know, the chupacabra off to feed and harvest on these animals, and then it somehow is able to like keep the blood, and then they take it back up to like their spaceship and like investigate it or whatever. That's my Aquarius moon getting really deep. You know what I'm saying? And to me, like something like the Wolfman, like you're right, where did he come from? There were spottings of him since the 1970s. That's not that long ago. That's not even 100 years ago. Was he an extraterrestrial that like got left behind, you know, and now he's here having to like fend for himself in caves or whatever, you know? Like you just have to ask yourself, where do they come from if they've only been having sightings for what, 60 years, whatever.
Yeah, and well, what's interesting, since it's in Kentucky and we're still talking about the mountains, there is a large caving system throughout all these mountains heading north and south and everything. Like, so there's connectors and whatnot. So it's one of those, did migrate from somewhere else and just popped up in Kentucky and now it decided to stick around? Or is it a cycle where it moves through a couple places and it just recently, like said in the 1970s, that someone started actually noticing it? Because, I mean, our population is encroaching on these areas in general as we move in and grow and everything.
I wanted to look where Wolf County is, if you're curious. It's WOLFE County. So the wolf lives in Wolf County. But basically, I was in Lexington, and then if you go to Bobby Mackey's, it is like right across the river from Cincinnati. Like, I mean, literally, you drive across the river from Cincinnati, and Bobby Mackey's is a little teeny town called Wilder. So I didn't get to go to the area of Wolf County. Wolf County, if you look on the map, is more like southeast of, not very far, just down highway, what is this? 11, it looks like, or something. And but that is a very mountainous area. Like, I've driven through there, and it's national forest area 100%. So I'm not shocked that they're seeing this creature. I wish people would get the clue of TikTok and do stories on their experience with Wolfman, because that's one that I'm personally fascinated with.
Oh yeah. Well, I also think it's because we are developing more suburbia and housing and everything, and we're slowly moving into these mountains that they've probably like lived in for a long time, and we're now just actually invading their space, really.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's totally impossible for these creatures to not exist either, because I don't, you know, of course, you know, I'm an Aquarius moon, I'm weird, I believe in aliens, you know what I mean? I don't think we're the only creatures on this, you know, existence plane. Of course I don't, you know what I mean? Like, that's ridiculous. I think that humans are very stupid, generally speaking, and there's got to be like some other, I hope to God that there's other intelligent life that's actually using spacecraft and like cool stuff, you know what I mean? Like, I hope to God it doesn't end with humans, because I feel like we're in trouble, like, as a collective, like, if that's where it ends, you know what I mean?
We're all doomed.
We're all doomed. We're in trouble, you know what I'm saying? But
it's funny, in sci-fi stories, like, Earth is always placed as the backwaters of the universe, where they're like, oh yeah, there's humans over there. It's like, why do I feel like this is not far off from the truth?
I agree. I tell Kat says it too. I got her saying it now, but I always say, why did I incarnate to this planet? Like, this is such a bad idea. Like, what was I thinking? Why am I here?
I'll decide to go glamping.
Oh yeah, really, literally. So, but yeah, I mean, and especially being like the paranormal enthusiast that we all are. I mean, even you guys watching and listening to this later as a podcast, don't we want the Wolfman to exist? Don't we want a werewolf to exist in our heart of hearts? Don't you want the werewolf to exist, Eilfie? You know you do.
I would love to see footage of this too, because that would be the coolest thing, because I do not believe that we have cataloged every living creature on this planet. I think there's a ton that we have left out because, yeah, we don't look very well apparently, or something, or it's like, nope, I'm staying hidden, you can all go away.
Well, that, and didn't you just hear on the ocean, they just think that they counteracted and found a megalodon alive?
Shocker. I am shocked. This is my shocked face.
I know.
Really?
I know. The oceans they're the most unexplored, you know what I mean? And then if you think about, like, Dolores Canyon, if you guys have ever gotten into that sort of research, which she was like, she did hypnotism, and she did a lot of research on people that would talk about their past lives. So that's why I think she's amazing, because I'm fascinated by past lives, because I totally believe that we, like Eilfie and I, how do we connect so easily, and we're just like friends, and it's great, you know what I mean? Like, I think that those people in your life that come so naturally, it's just because you've lived lives together. And Dolores Cannon talks about, you know, similar to this, like, theory of, like, you know, incarnation, and like even these paranormal experiences too. Why is it that some people have the gift to be able to communicate with the other side and some don't? Everyone has psychic abilities. It just depends on how much you're open to it, sort of thing, right? How much you're willing to access, how much you're allowing yourself to access to the other side. And I think that it really says the same thing with these creatures, don't you? Which is like, if you're living in the mountains, you're either going to be interested in understanding it or you're not. If you're not open to it, you're not going to attract it. It's similar, like, with people with aliens, right? Some people attract, you know, aliens and, like, alien encounters, and others don't.
Oh, yeah. No, I can totally see it. I mean, especially the ones that, at least I've been noticing, who talk about science are the ones who have been living there in the mountains for a while, who are just, they're comfortable there. They're adapted to it. They've moved there, or they've had family there. So that makes sense why possibly whatever is around them in the woods is like, oh, okay, they're here. You're one of us, or at least they don't come off as outsider, maybe.
Yeah, I've seen some stories though where people have said, like, that they live in the Appalachian Mountains, or whatever area you want to call it. Let's say it's just like a very hidden area that's not populated. But they're like, oh yeah, like, you know, we know Bigfoot lives in the area, and like we have horses. I would be worried about my horses. Like, every night I would be bringing my horses in my house. Like, you come here, horsey. You have to stay in the living room because I don't want Bigfoot to eat you. You know what I mean? Like, or like, you have chickens. Like, I'm going to have to take my whole chicken coop inside, and they're going to shat everywhere because I don't want them to get eaten by Bigfoot. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it almost sounds like with some of it, like, okay, some of the, especially the mimickers, they definitely, like, they want to mess around with people and stuff. But others, like Bigfoot, I feel like similar to most animals who just don't want to deal with people. They're like, okay, you are over there, I'm over here, as long as we don't approach on each other's, don't cross the line, we're fine.
Respect
I stay in my wood, you stay on your property, we're all cool.
I don't know, man. Now, Bigfoot makes me a little nervous, but I like to look at both sides of this, because, like, dude, he's never had an interview, man. You know what I mean? Like, everybody makes it sound like Bigfoot is scary. What if he's not? What if he's chill? What if he's chill AF and he just wants to hang out and, like, pick his berries and, like, be with his wife and kids? You know what I mean?
Well, I think he's chill, and I think a lot of times, at least with the if we're going to believe that a lot of the footage we see of Bigfoot is real, most of the time he's scavenging, foraging, doing his thing, and, like, spots the person filming him and then just takes off in the opposite direction. There's only been a couple times where I think you see a footage of maybe the Bigfoot coming at the person, but it's a lot rarer. And most of the time it's like Bigfoot is just, like, gone.
It's
doesn't
true.
want to
It's
be
this
seen.
like if we're afraid as him, like how we're portraying it. Obviously, they're going to be just as afraid of us, is what you're saying, basically. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
going this way, you go that way. Like none of my business. But yeah, in horror films and horror movies or depictions of it, he's always, you know. And I'm not saying they're not bad, but humans are bad too, man. I'm just equally as afraid of humans.
Well, okay. So the only time I've ever heard them get violent or violent, like, and I don't know if this is real or this could be like eco people, protesters stuff. Like I've heard of them, with forestation and you have like the big machines going through and uh, deforesting certain areas of the U.S. and everything. And there's been reports of like machines being tipped over or tires being chopped across and everything. And that's the only time I've ever heard of anything remotely violent of them. But we're not even sure if that's them or eco protests saying, "Oh yeah, it was a Bigfoot."
Mm-hmm.
Causing this mass destruction. But it's like, if they can tip over a machine that big, that does, but they don't want to deal with us.
Yeah, but another question I always have though is like, after all this time, if Bigfoot does exist and all these people have claimed to have encountered them, and America is so gun hungry, how come one hasn't been killed and brought in? Not that I'm saying I want that to happen, because I just think you should just hashtag free Bigfoot. You know what I mean? Like, leave Bigfoot alone. Don't shoot Bigfoot. But like, you do wonder, you know what I'm saying? Do you get where I'm going with this?
Yeah, but I think Bigfoot is a lot smarter than we think, and
I agree.
has adapted and learned how to avoid us, and how to avoid the weapons we have, and knows where to go and what not to do and everything. And I have seen those shows where they were like, "We're going to hunt Bigfoot." It's like, oh God, please don't.
I hate those shows. Some of them, they're like in Alaska and they have like the lights off. They have night vision cameras and they're like, I'm sure it's just for like show. I'm sure the producers are like, make it look dramatic. You know what I mean? Like, but they're like flailing their guns all over the place. I'm like, y'all are gonna shoot each other. Y'all are gonna shoot each other because you're stupid. But like, the thing that scares me about stuff like that is I'm afraid like a bunch of amateur kids are going to go out there and try to replicate it, and they are actually going to like accidentally shoot, shoot each other.
Yeah. And when we say ghost hunters or whatnot, we don't literally mean hunting. We mean like investigating, finding evidence, not trying to get a Bigfoot pelt.
Well, and why do you always have to like kill everything that you find, for God's sake? You know what I mean? Once again, what if Bigfoot just wants to have a conversation? Why don't you just sit down and give him an interview? You know what I mean? Give him a chance to talk. Take him a cup of coffee. Maybe he'll just chill. You know what I'm saying? Why do we have to kill him? I'm just saying. So anyway, Bigfoot, that's why we're talking about this. So exclusive areas for this is Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, and West Virginia. Obviously, there's hundreds of eyewitness accounts throughout the Appalachian Mountains where he's been seen. It's not just one. They claim that there's many different ones of different status that have different colored fur, different heights, different. Some say they think they've seen children Bigfoot, daddy Bigfoot.
Those are neat. Like, there's only been a couple I think I've ever seen the footage where they claim they basically like a small Bigfoot, and then of course, just like with any animal, it's like, great, if the baby's here, where's mama?
Yeah, that's true. It's true. It's like a mama bear. Like, watch out. It's true. Some of them have claimed that they see glowing green eyes, in the Appalachian Mountains, and they do believe this is particularly Bigfoot. So it's just interesting. I took a lot of college courses. I'm hoping to finish my degree because I'm literally like 2 classes away from it. It's really sad. I don't know why I haven't done it. I'm really lazy. I just need to finish, like, rip the Band-Aid, you know what I mean? But if you talk with college professors that are, in different science departments, especially that study like humanoids or like evolution, they actually fully believe that Bigfoot exists. I've had several that have doctorates.
Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. It's because it makes you think, doesn't it?
Well, because I can see so you have Homo sapien, which is us, and then you have like the only other one everyone usually thinks about is the Neanderthal and everything. But there were technically many other species of humans or human-like that we assumed died off, and we're like ends up with just us. Like we're the last ones, or we end up on top in the evolution scale. But there were supposedly so many other different kinds, and I could see Bigfoot being possibly one of those that just adapted to basically avoiding us, probably.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great thing.
I may not say this correctly because I can't remember. It was one of my professors we had like a huge discussion. Oh, someone, C. Weiss, you said you had a Bigfoot experience. Tell us. I'd love to share it with everybody. Essentially, what one of my professors said was humans are like, is it bonobos? Does that sound correct? It's like a group of monkeys. And essentially, like, they're like orangutans. They live together in like groups. You know what I'm saying? Like big groups. Mm-hmm. These particular orangutans create armies, like literally, actually. And so essentially, you what my professor would compare is humans are like, orangutans, bonobos, to what they are to gorillas, which gorillas go and live off in very small communities, like just 3 or 4. And that's what she would describe what Bigfoot is they would go, they're the gorillas to our bonobo sort of thing. You know what I mean? And so they go live in like communities of 2 or 3 or 4. They don't live in like huge communities. And it's interesting when you go to college and you listen to these professors, because when they brought up these conversations about Bigfoot, I was like, they're going to shut it down. They're going to say it's like a joke. Nobody, but these are people that have gone to school for like, and they've studied like case studies and like hair samples. And it's just really cool, like fascinating to me to hear people not shut the idea down, or like, the theory behind what Bigfoot could be. So CY said, it's hard to explain the moment you see it. I still question if it happened or not, if I was hallucinating. So that's interesting if you say that, because I feel like that means it felt that real that you were like, am I here? Is this happening? That happens to us in paranormal though, doesn't it? Like, can you think of a couple of times where you've told me there was something that happened in a basement of a location and you heard it calling your name? And it was so real that you were like, I am not doing this right now. I am not doing it.
Oh, yeah. No, I was upstairs and everyone else had gone to bed. And, this is the thing. It's like, I heard my name and like, nope. But the thing is, anytime there's been experiences, noped out that one. It was like, nah, I'm good.
Eilfie, no. Sorry. It's bedtime.
Because it's not like you can mistake my name. It's not like you can make mistake. Like, did I really hear my name called? Like, no, for sure, someone called my name, and everyone is asleep right now.
Right.
And that was from the basement, where no one should be. But I, at least for me personally, when I've had experience, it's like the second or so after the fact that you register that something strange just happened, and 2, you're like, did that just actually happen? Mm-hmm. Like, when it's happening, you just kind of go with it, I feel like. You just, like, accept what's going on. And then after, almost like a dream, it's like, did I just see what I thought I saw? Mm-hmm. And then you start catching up almost. Like, your brain finally catches up, like, yes, we just had a weird experience.
See, I've had those experiences both sober and under the influence, which is why I say I really don't think it's safe to be under the influence ghost hunting, honestly, because I've done it. I mean, I didn't ghost hunt, but I've been in locations where there were parties. I've talked about this at the Stanley Hotel, and I told everybody I was partying with some of Ghost Adventures, and we were in the presidential suite, and I'm not gonna lie, I was tipsy. I wasn't wasted, but I was feeling it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was having fun. That's all I'm gonna say. And we thought we saw a leprechaun run up the stairs, peek behind a door, and it slammed the door shut. And I'm talking, the leprechaun was no bigger than like maybe 5 or 6 inches. And I wasn't the only one that saw. I wasn't the only one that saw it, but I did that. I was like, we were all, tipsy, whatever, and drunk, whatever you want to call it, and it, like, 5 of us saw it, and we stared, and it was that moment where you're like, okay, so I've definitely had a few drinks for sure.
I'm done now. I'm good.
But I know I'm not the only one that saw that, so. And it did not appear to be see-through. It appeared to be 3D. So, and it slammed the door. You know what I mean? Like, so I get that feeling where it's like it takes a minute for your brain to register, and then you like negotiate with yourself, don't you? Where you're like, did I actually see that? I don't know if I saw. What did it look like? You know? Okay, C. Weiss is telling the story behind Bigfoot. It says, I was at a high mountain range with my son. We walked up a trail, and I could hear what sounded like bells. Then a humanoid/ape creature stood up, and then we looked at each other. It was not a bear. My son said, "What is that, Mom?" I said, "I'm not sure." And we turned around and left because I needed to leave. I processed it hours later, and I still wonder if it was real. Wow. Wow. How far was it from you? Could you yeah, oh, someone just said that too, about how far away was it? Wow. Can you imagine that? You're standing on a mountain, you're like, you know what? Bigfoot, bro, what's going on, homie? How are you doing? Cat would be like, I got a hat for you in the car, boo boo. Got a scarf for you, chilly. What do you need? Wow, that's crazy.
I can understand the shockness, because it's like you hear the stories, you see like the footage, you see pictures, but if you're suddenly actually face to face to it, even if it's like a little bit high, I mean, it's one of those, I can see where you would not be able to mistake that for a bear or any other animal. It's like, yep.
Oh, she said,
I'm looking at a Bigfoot.
I still remember my 6-year-old son asking me what it was, ... It felt like time stopped when we looked at each other. It was small. I think it was a juvenile. I mean, that's specific. You know what I mean? That's specific.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
I think it's even sort of that you just like.
But then I go into Eilfie's thought process, which is, where is Mama Bigfoot? Okay, like not far.
That is definitely, because it's like, I don't know how old like the Bigfoots become, like once they're a certain age, do they go off on their own, or do they stick around? It's like,
Eilfie! I can't! That was Eilfie's one-liners. All right, when baby Bigfoot gets older, about how old do you leave the nest? Do you marry a Mrs. Bigfoot? Okay, I need to know. We need to just have a chat. I need to sit you down. Let's have a coffee. Okay, I need to know what your timeline is.
Like, family structure work. Like, what's...
Oh my God, Eilfie. Okay, she said about 20 feet away. It was about 20 feet away.
That's not far at all.
Mm-hmm. Especially for, she said it stood up. Like, you know, like think about when we've been to get something. I don't know what I would do if I'd see one. I think my throat would fall in my ass. You know what I mean? Like that feeling?
I always think it's like, I feel like you interrupted the Bigfoot and just was probably just as shocked.
I think I would be scared to know if they were like surrounding me. You know what I mean? Because you go first to the horror of like the thought of, you know, the horror movies with you know, Bigfoot's gonna eat me. You know what I mean? Like I am dinner. Interesting.
Now I'm thinking about the raptors of Jurassic Park. Like, oh, I see the one in front of me. Now there's two on each side. I'm dead.
I'm dead. Where's Blue at? Where's Blue? So that's interesting. That's really cool. I have family members that, you know, in Colorado and in Washington State that have claimed they've encountered Bigfoot. So I'm not really shocked by that either. And a lot of people say, oh, like, did you have a gun? Did you scare it off? No, my family doesn't. That side of my family doesn't use guns. So they were just walking through. And every person that I've known that has had, like, in-person encounters, they don't seem to, like, the creature doesn't seem to be aggressive.
Yeah.
It's like what you say, which is they, like, see each other, or even what C. Weiss is saying, you, like, see each other and then, like, turn away sort of thing. And then, like, that's it. So, oh, she said a few things. She said the bells and how the black eyes and the hair was the strangest part. She says the one curious question she has is, why did I hear bells? Well, that makes you wonder if that's like the mimicking or something, right? That they all talk about.
The bells is strange because I don't think I've ever heard of like bells. I mean, you'll hear the sounds that they supposedly make, like their whooping sounds or grunt sounds and everything, but I don't think I ever heard of bells. That is an unusual one.
It is. It's interesting. So there's another wolf, and it has many names. Okay, yeah, I'll wait. You know, I'll keep chatting with you, C. Weiss, if you want to keep talking. I'd love to hear the story. There's another creature called the smoke wolf, and I thought that was interesting, but you know, it didn't really. I looked online to see like the areas, and it's several areas. So I wonder if that wolf gets confused with Wolfman. You know what I mean? But this one, they say it's basically a massive canine, and it has like eyes that glow as bright as the sun. So that's like yellow/red. And there's been witnesses that have heard the howl or the scream on the property. That's what these people on TikTok seem to be talking about. If you're hearing someone howling or screaming, it could be this wolf man. Now, people that have encountered the wolf have said they feel pure evil from it, and like that they literally just kill for fun.
Well, this one sounds a little more supernatural than, say, the Wolfman that could be just a crypto creature. Everything. This one sounds more almost like those omens you hear about. The ones that like if you see it, that means like either yourself or someone in your family might pass away and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely seems more on the supernatural side than the other wolf creatures.
Yeah, this one, there's chains that rattle. They say if you before you encounter it, before you see it, that you'll hear chains rattle, which that to me does sound on the darker side. So it does make you wonder. I think it's a mixed bag what's going on here of supernatural and crypto characters.
Oh yeah, well it sounds similar because there's a couple of omen creatures in folklore that the weirdest part about them usually is like if you hear their sound, like their cries or screams, they're usually pretty far away, but as it gets softer, you think it's like going away, but it's actually like getting closer to you.
Oh, this is interesting. C. Weiss said, this is the lady that was talking about her encounter with her son and the Bigfoot. She says, I hike there all the time hoping to get a second chance. This is what I was saying earlier. I think we all have different energetic waves. So for C. Weiss right now, she's gone into this era on like this same wavelength of encountering a Bigfoot. Now she's on that energetic wavelength. She is going to connect with it because that is her wavelength. It's whatever you put out there is what you're going to get back. And that's the fascinating part, how all of us have different abilities, all of us have not only the way we connect with like supernatural and paranormal, but like I said, I even had like the friends in the Air Force that connected with aliens. Like it's just fascinating to me how everybody has your own energetic highway to your own thing. And that part is what I just love about crypto character, just the whole side of like supernatural. So now the next one is Mothman. Obviously, he's been seen at several places, including like the Ohio River, Point Pleasant. Now, Eilfie, I know we've talked about this before, and I'm happy to like briefly talk about it again, just because it's just like, this is what like I was so fascinated with Eilfie on Paranormal State, right? Because I don't care. I think it's just so badass that you got to go and like even experience the location. Now, you said when you went it was really cold. Obviously, Mothman was spotted like in the 1960s. Sometimes he can be claimed to have like been like an omen, so like he shows up before something bad happens, like the Silver Bridge collapsing, or he was spotted at 9/11. They say he's like a 7 to 8 foot tall creature, 10-foot wingspan. He lives in the caves and the nests where Eilfie got to go, investigate. The question is like, do you think you felt his energy? Like, you didn't experience anything firsthand, but you were down where they claimed he's been, where he's lived. How do you feel about that?
Well, it was interesting because we went to the TNT fields where they have the domes and everything where they would keep the ammunition, I believe, during when it was still active, I want to say military base at the time. And this was also formerly a marshland, so it was being reclaimed as marshland, and the domes are still standing and everything. And it even like I've been there during the daylight hours. It has a interesting feel about it, like this strange quietness about it, like this very still energy to it that just, even when we went there at night, we went into the TNT domes and everything, there was definitely, we didn't have like big experiences. We had like some little ones with ship coffee and stuff, but it definitely at times felt like there was something watching or observing.
What did Chip say? I guess I need to rewatch that episode. By the way, I'm going to tote Eilfie here. Eilfie is on Discovery Plus. That's right, girl. You ride that wavelength out, okay? You should be proud of that. She's on like, what, 100 episodes of Paranormal State, something like that. So they did just put that on because Discovery merged. So if you want to watch Eilfie, you get on Discovery Plus, boo-boo, because she is on there. I am so happy and proud of her. Anyway, no, I can't remember the episode. Now I have to rewatch it. So Chip was there. What did he, because I believe Chip's legit. I believe he's real. Obviously, you've worked with him a lot. What did he experience?
I can't remember, because I remember he had gotten some messages while, because we were all standing in one of the domes, and I remember he got a few messages. I'm trying to think what they were.
I'll have to rewatch it now. I forgot he was there. Oh, I love it. I love it.
I think a lot of it was about being an observer, and I think we were asking questions about whether or not the Mothman was the cause of the Silver Bridge collapse or the cause of what people had experienced. Like, is it Harbinger? And what Chip was getting through was that it was more of an observer, and it's just been there for a long time.
See, I don't think Mothman's bad either. And like, but you know, I'm weird, right? And I don't know if like it's energy speaking, but like, I don't really believe all these creatures are out to mass murder all of us, or they would have done it by now, right? Like, let's be real. Like, they've had the opportunity to do this if that's the way it is. I don't think he's an omen. I think that maybe it's a protective omen of like, oh my God, something is about to happen. But of course, humans are going to be like, oh, that's because it's demonic. And he took the bridge down himself. And it's like, okay.
That was totally, I feel like that was more of a man-made problem there than a Mothman problem with the bridge.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, so if you read the book and everything, you get about the UFO sightings, you get Mothman, you get the Men in Black as well that show up. So I always felt like Mothman was more extraterrestrial or interdimensional than maybe crypto, possibly, that because it's such a big creature and it showed up, and then all of a sudden all these UFO sightings started happening and Men in Black started showing up and this weird stuff started happening one after the other. And I keep thinking that this is more of an extraterrestrial creature that's just been around for a very long time, because I often believe that aliens have been interacting here for a long time, not just the silly ancient alien stuff, but just they have been probably here more often than we think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I agree. 100%. And I would hate to be stuck on this planet. Like, poor Mothman, bro. Do you want to come live with me? Let me help you. I wouldn't want to be stuck here either.
Samples and everything.
Yeah. Okay, wait. We have some updates on... So Jinzo, which is another one of my subscribers, said, it's interesting correlating back to... we're talking about Bigfoot again. When you're saying that you hear the chains rattle and then... C. Weiss said, I heard bells. So this is an interesting theory, because then it makes you wonder is the supernatural interacting with the crypto? Does the other side know, like, to warn? Like for example, C. Weiss is saying, I heard bells and then all of a sudden then it stood up, we saw each other, and then we walked away. It's almost like the supernatural can travel a lot faster invisibly and was warning both parties about it, right? Had the bell noise, and then both of you and then the people are hearing the chains. It's almost like the supernatural side of it is warning both parties before something happens. It's almost like both energetically are speaking, is what I'm thinking.
Well, the thing we haven't even touched on entirely is even just the idea of the Fae and everything.
Yes.
And the spirits of the nature and whatnot, because there's been definitely plenty of stories of Fae-like beings that you will hear bells and clinking and almost musical sound and everything.
Which could be
usually
Fae.
before something happens. Hopefully not always negative.
No, it's not. And like, you can look into Fae, and Fae can go back into like Ireland and Scotland and stuff, but you can also look into Fae. Fae is considered like a level of the underworld, right? But it's usually connected to nature, Mother Earth, blah, blah, blah. So once again, in a positive manner, warning both parties. Because unfortunately, we have to be real about this and say that humans are destructive. Let's just be real. You know what I mean? Humans are not only destructive to the planet, but to each other, and not only to each other, but to, I'm going to go out and hunt me a squatch. Why do you gotta kill it? Like, what if they're not even aggressive? I understand protecting yourself in case you get attacked, but like, so many people just want a body, and it's just like, and that's kind of how they interact with other humans too, right? Let's be real. Let's just get the body count up. You know what I mean? So it's almost like, supernatural, the fae, the other side steps in, and they're like, let's not have a war, and let's just warn each other and back away slowly. And that's literally what happened with C. Weiss, right? She's like, I saw it. I was like, okay, we're gonna go now. Like, so it worked. It worked. The communication, even though they weren't saying something physically to you, the bells and the communication and the warning worked. It still worked. So it's interesting how energetically we still vibe, and it doesn't even have to be me saying, hey, you're about to run into a squatch, just warning you. You know what I mean? And you still understood the message.
Yeah.
So Mothman, so you think it exists. You think he's legit.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Yeah, me too. And that's, like, when I am ready to quit Ghost Girl Diaries, even if it's one season, I've made it when I got to the caves of Mothman with Eilfie. I am done. I'm good. I'm ready to retire. Once I've done that, I am good. That's my ultimate goal, is to get back there with Eilfie, because it's so fascinating to me that she got to do that. The next one, this one I never heard of before. Did you hear of the Grafton Monster, which is basically, it was mainly spotted in West Virginia in the 1950s?
This one's a new one to me. Like, and I even looked up some more about it because I'm like, wait, what is this thing? And it sounds so, this is where I feel like when we were talking earlier about different kinds of Bigfoots, I feel like maybe this Grafton Monster might be just a different kind of Bigfoot, maybe.
Is that how you felt about the way it was described? Because I was having a hard time picturing it in my brain.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing why I looked at, because I'm like, wait, it's supposed to look headless, but his head is just like really low and the shoulders are really high. But it doesn't sound like it's necessarily hunched over. It's a very odd description.
And you look it up, and basically there's pictures, and it looks like a damn Yeti, which to me, there's a difference between a Bigfoot and a Yeti in my brain, right? Because Yetis to me are like bigger and like, you know what I mean? And like weirdly, oddly shaped, which is how it's being described as the Grafton Monster. And you think of Bigfoot, and he's just like a big dude in like a Bigfoot costume. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just, there's a difference. So the Grafton Monster was, what's that? Go ahead, say that again.
You said Bigfoot's like a little more humanoid form than compared to, okay.
Bigfoot's a little bit more petite than a Yeti / Grafton Monster, I guess. No, I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Okay,
he's a little bit more petite.
8 feet tall, then how big would Yeti be?
And I don't know where the swamp bait fits in there, you know what I mean? But so basically, I know the Grafton Monster is described as a bipedal creature with short hair. It's estimated, now this is large, between 1,000 to 1,500 pounds, very large, broad shoulders that sort of, the shoulders and head sort of sit low or like below the body, which is like kind of hunchy, I guess. And from behind, when people have seen it, they've said that it appears like it's missing its head. And it eats livestock, essentially. It's this massive creature that lives, it's been seen in West Virginia, essentially.
So this one comes off as more, it sounds like it comes off a little more aggressive and does not care if it goes anywhere near humans, if it's eating livestock. So it's like a little more on the braver side compared to other like Bigfoot or Yeti-like creatures.
And if you're talking about a 1,500-pound creature, and who knows if it gets bigger over time, right? That
like, where does a 1,500-pound creature go?
Well, yeah, but if you're gonna shoot it, let's be real. If you're gonna shoot a 1,500-pound creature, I don't think it's really gonna do a whole lot. You know what I mean? I mean, like, this is massive. Yeah. And by the way, what if it's gotten bigger since then? Although if you're that large and bipedal, I feel like you'd be very slow. So I do.
Also, when they say livestock, what do you mean? Like it eats the cows? Like it eats the horse? Like what livestock is this thing going after? And is there photos?
And is there photos? And there's wild turkeys in Kentucky, in that area. I don't know if you... Kat says there's wild turkeys because she called me the other day and almost hit one. I remember that.
No.
I don't know if you guys have wild turkeys there. I know there's a lot of deer that run rampant through PA.
Yeah, we got deer, we got wild turkeys, we get turkey vultures, we get bears. So yeah, we get the wildlife.
And then more in the south side, they have like the wild hogs, that run through
Those
Georgia.
we don't use. Like, don't mess with the wild boar or wild pigs because they are aggressive and even worse than the bears or deer.
They come in big packs, and they'll take you out. And in Georgia, there's crocodiles, and they're dinosaurs, man. Like those are, I don't mess with dinosaurs.
Have you ever heard of Hogzilla?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, so if you have time, look up Hogzilla because it's this photo of this giant boar that was caught, and it was massive. It was like 3 times larger than the person who had it like hung up and everything. But it was this gigantic.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
And it's like, that's what you want to avoid.
They said it was 12 feet long and 1,000-pound hog that was found in Georgia. Yeah. Wow.
So think of that at 1,000 pounds. Now think of this Grafton monster at 1,500 pounds.
Jesus. Yeah. I mean, it's true. And on bipedal. Yeah. I mean, it's scary. The next one is the raven mocker, and this one I actually found really fascinating because I am Cherokee, and this is a Cherokee legend, the raven mocker. It's a shapeshifter. So I mean, I don't know if it would be considered a would you consider it to be, what's the term I'm looking for? The farm that's in Utah, and like what's it called? What are the creatures? Why am I having like a brain fart?
Oh. Wait. Wait, are you talking about the skinwalker?
Yes. Could it be a skin?
Okay.
When you say shapeshifter, the first thing my brain goes to is skinwalker. So, especially with indigenous lore, you know what I mean? Because that's a very legit thing. So, Cherokee legend, the raven mocker is a shapeshifting Bigfoot that stands at 7 feet tall with black fur, solid white eyes, which I found interesting. And this type of Bigfoot is believed to inhabit basically the southwest of Virginia, and it can shapeshift into any animal, any appearance, including a man or a woman. And in its human form, that's what's called the raven mocker, and it can lurk unsuspecting people, and it basically like removes your heart from your chest without leaving a mark. So the raven mocker to me sounds like that's where if you hear something in the woods and it called your name, no, you didn't hear it. Like, you know what I mean? That's what it sounds like to me.
Well, also this is interesting because of the shifting into, it said, like you said, into old man or old woman and stuff. Like, I feel like that also falls into the lore of like if you see like strangers along the path and everything, and because you never know who might be human, who might be a supernatural creature as you're going along your way through the mountains and everything.
Well, even like when I was in Tennessee, they're like, if someone knocks on the door, no, nobody's there.
The white eyes is different because most of the time these legends talk about the eyes being like totally like blacked out and everything. Mm-hmm. So the white eyes is it's different than other ones and whatnot.
This is how I feel about indigenous lore. There's 2 sides of it. On one side of it, I get a little, which I think I sent you an article the other day, you and Kat, I think in group chat, didn't I? Where it was like, can we stop, demoralizing everywhere to be like dark and haunted with indigenous lore? It's all haunted with like, graveyards. All the indigenous are going to come up out of the ground and like become demons and like get you. It's true. There's like I feel like there's a balance. Because on one side, first of all, like all of America is like Native American burial ground, like literally, you know what I mean? Like, but on the other side, it's true, if you disrespect it, like that, it's not like demonic. It's not the same, but like it should be respected. I'm trying to figure out a way to put it into words just because I am indigenous. I grew up with indigenous lore. My grandmother was straight off the res. She used to tell me stories about it and stories about obviously skinwalkers and everything else. And I just want people to understand, like, it shouldn't be demonized, yet it should be respected. There's an appropriate balance there.
Well, it sounds like these stories were used for safety and used for awareness, and like you said, a balance of respect. It wasn't like evil. It was more like, don't mess with it. Here's how you stay safe. We leave it be, it leaves us be.
Yeah.
Kind of deal.
Well, and if you were to ask me with my indigenous background if I believe the raven mocker exists, Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I would say 100%. If this is a lore that came from like, 1600 Cherokee, you don't mess with it. Because this is Cherokees using this publicly saying, hey, the Raven Mocker exists, and just what Elfie said. You respect it, it respects you. But it shapeshifts. If you hear it calling your name or turning into human form, whatever, respect it and walk away. Don't like mock it. Don't go after it. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason that these stories have been passed down for hundreds of years, and indigenous people don't mess around with these kind of stories. Like, this wouldn't just be a made up story for sure. Like, I have stories from my family that go way, way, way back. I mean, my family survived the Trail of Tears. You know what I mean? And there is a lot of trauma that comes with that, but it should be more on like the respected side. You know what I mean? What do you think about the Raven Mocker?
It's interesting, especially I find it interesting that's very specific about the heart and the removal of the heart and everything, and just it's one of those. It's not so generalized. Like when you hear about some of the mimics and stuff, they're usually very generalized form. But this one, it has a lot of points where it's like, okay, I feel like enough people have actually encountered this, where it's like, this is what it looks like, this is what it does, and this is what it goes after. So don't do that and whatnot. So it's not just your general, oh, if you hear a voice in the woods, don't go after it. It's more like, if you see this, don't go near it.
Someone asked about a skilly, which is a native poltergeist activity. I just looked it up. I'd have to do more research on it before I have an opinion on it, which I picked up an article. This is Cherokee folklore again. I mean, I am Cherokee, so I just wouldn't dispute it. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, I have all of my family's heirlooms from the Trail of Tears. I'm the only one that got them. I don't know how in the world my grandmother passed them on to me. I'm very, very lucky and privileged. And we have stories in there that I'm not supposed to share with people that are outside of Cherokee. And it's really because it's to protect our indigenous heritage. And like basically these entities won't come after you unless you have Cherokee blood or indigenous blood, whatever that is. And if I were to share these stories, it could come from me, whatever that means, if that makes sense. But this is very common among all tribes. The Cherokee Nation is one of the bigger tribes, which is out of Oklahoma, out of Tahlequah, which is where my family's from, most of my mom's side of the family. So if you're asking me about the skilly and native poltergeist, I just wouldn't doubt any of it, to be honest with you. But, we've also learned in paranormal over time with poltergeist activity that you can create it yourself. You can create poltergeist activity with your own energy. Kat's famous for that. She is. She'll come to my house, and if she gets really mad about something, because she's an Aries sun, she's a Scorpio rising and an Aries sun. She's got some fire, you know what I'm saying? She's got an Aries stellium like me. She's got some fire. And if she gets really upset about something, she will make lights go on and off in the house. She'll make doors slam when she's mad. I've seen it happen. So just remember that now that we've also studied and we have come forward with, learning about energy and energy transmutation, that it is possible for poltergeist activity also to come from yourself. And, I'm not saying poltergeists don't exist, but I think that term gets thrown around way too much in our industry. Don't you, Eilfie? Yeah. I mean, you get scared because of the term poltergeist, and they do exist. A harmful entity or a powerful entity that can. We see the videos all the time on like Travel Channel where like the cupboards are slamming, open and shut in the kitchen or whatever, and they do exist. But it like you always go, oh, it's a demon. It's 100% a demon. You know what I mean? Like it may not necessarily. And I think people also don't realize when you're talking about poltergeist activity. This is why I tell people not to investigate your own house. Because the minute you open that door and you start investigating your own house, it is going to think you have okayed for communication. So you're wondering why the cabinets are opening and shut. It's because it's like, hey, you said you want to have a conversation. Why aren't you talking? I'm right, though, aren't I, Eilfie? Like, you know what I'm saying. Like,
Oh, yeah. Well, it's one of those things of, like, it's one of those... unless you're starting to actually have experience before you start investigating, it's one of those, like, just because you stop the recording and everything doesn't mean whatever came by went like, oh, you stopped talking. It's like, no, I still want to talk.
Yeah. Yep.
I still want to communicate. That's where you have to lay down a lot of ground rules. And
well, that's why, especially if you're not experienced in ghost hunting in your own house, is so bad. Because I'm not talking like, it's not just like what Eilfie said. It's not just starting a Ouija session or turning the camera on or using a digital recorder. It's going to be 3 a.m. when it's quiet because they think it's the perfect. Obviously, you just went to bed. You're relaxed. Oh, this is a great time to be like, yeah, I'm here. And you're like, what? You know what I mean? Like, you're screaming, you're running out of bed, or they start moving the fan in bed. It's not necessarily to scare you. It's because you just asked them to communicate. And they're sitting there like, bro, you said you wanted to talk. Why? And now you're scared of me. You know what I mean? Like, and it's true. 90% of the time when you're ghost hunting, it's not something dark. And there was an investigator on TikTok that ran across mine and Kat's feed the other day, and I did not like what she said. I disagreed with her strongly. She said that entities know when they're dead. That is not always true. Kat and I have investigated, especially in Chloride or Arizona, where all these miners died of explosive, horrible deaths. And we got on the spirit box. We said, hey, like, you know, not trying to be offensive, but you know you're dead, right? They're like, we are? Like, sometimes they don't know they're dead. So I don't like when people says, like, oh, or people say, oh, yeah, they know they're dead. Like, just let them be. Not always, man. Not always. In fact, that spirit box session that Kat and I did made us both cry because we were like, hey, do you know you're dead? And they were like, no, we're dead. Like, what? Like, what happened? Like, there was a mining accident. Like, 100 years ago, bro. Like, you've been gone for a while. And they're like, what? We're dead? And they're like, you can't see us? So, like, I'm just saying, paranormal activity shouldn't be feared the way it is. But if you're going to investigate your own house, do not be shocked if at 3 a.m. your fan starts going off by itself, okay? And it's because you asked for it.
There's moments where people are like, give me a sign, and then something like pinches them or pokes them, and they're like, oh my god, and they freak out. It's like, ask for a sign. What did you expect them to do?
Yeah, it's true. You ask for a sign, and you don't always get the sign exactly when you want it either. Sometimes it will be 5 hours later, or, you know, whatever. And once you open that door, especially in your own house, you better be sure that you know how to end it or close it or remove it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, not everybody's comfortable with doing that either. All right, next one. Silver Giant. Did you see this one? I thought this was interesting too. The silver giant is a bear / a thing that can run on 2 legs, but they say it's on 4 as well. But when it stands, it's between 9 and 11 feet tall, and its fur is generally dark, but it's seen to have like streaks of silver running down its back. So that's why they call it the silver giant, but it looks more like a bear.
All I'm picturing in my head is actually like a prehistoric badger or something.
Yes. Yeah, me too. Although I feel like this one could be easily mistaken for an actual bear. You know what I mean? Because I've also seen like regular bears in Colorado. Like if they're injured or like their paws have been burnt or something, you know, from like the pavement, they will walk on their 2 feet. So I feel like this one could be, and you're saying 9 to 11 feet. Okay, but how far away were you? Because that estimate could change, you know, like the viewpoint, you know what I'm saying? So anyway.
And also you'll get bears, like as they get older, their fur will go silver, or if they've had an injury, like you're talking, their fur will sometimes grow back, white or a much lighter color than the rest of fur where the injury happens. So there's always that possibility.
The Cherokee Death Cat. Now this one's cool. This was my favorite one out of all of them. I don't know if you had a favorite, but this one was like hands down my favorite. Maybe it's because I'm Cherokee. I don't know. But this is a cat-like beast that's said to be in the Appalachian Mountains. It's said to look more like a lion, but it measures about 4 feet tall and 9 feet long from head to tail. People have seen this creature sort of leap extremely far. He's an expert climber up like mountains and caves, navigating through the trees with ease. It's basically like Edward the vampire in lion form, essentially. It feeds on livestock like cows, horses, and it focuses its attack on the jugular, which they think it's very like intelligent, right?
So it does a very quick kill.
It's a quick kill. Yeah, it's a quick kill.
Yeah.
And another thing I feel like people don't talk about too is in the Smoky Mountains, Appalachian Mountains, like, yes, you're warned to not go through there. You're warned to not walk through there at night. But so many people have gone missing and like never heard of again.
Oh, yeah. I was looking, because you've heard the missing 411 and everything.
Yeah.
And most of the time, at least when I started first looking into it, there was more, I was seeing more reports on the West Coast. But apparently there is a lot also through the Smoky Mountains, Appalachian Mountains, just as many as 411 through that as on the West Coast. And that was very fascinating to see how many reports there are yearly of it as well.
A lot. And I think it's not talked about very much because it's almost like they don't want people to know, or they don't want to attract more people there to like go missing. But I think that the forests are so dense, like how do you put out, you know what I mean? Like a search party, like miles and miles of just nothingness. And like I said, even my dad's house was in a town on the edge of town and there was no service. So like you even get people, searchers, you'd have to go in with walkies, and who knows if there is, high levels of electromagnetic fields like we know with paranormal activity, which obviously we're seeing paranormal activity happen. People are reporting it. That's going to drain your walkies and your batteries. You don't want to be out there after dark either. So it's almost like these people go missing and it's like, well, you were warned. You were warned. And that's kind of it.
Yeah, and the other thing you have to remember too, because with the Appalachian Mountains, there's the Appalachian Trail that goes from, I think it starts off in like Maine or something, and goes all the way down to, I can't remember if it ends in like Kentucky or Alabama, but it's this trail, it's a collection of trails connecting them. And every year people will take that one trail, take that trail all the way down and everything. This will take like months, because I remember a couple of people who had tried to do it and everything. And so it's not unheard of someone going off into the mountains for these trails and be gone for a very long time, for months, because they are taking these multiple trails that connect up all the way down from north to south. So it's interesting because it's a very popular thing, but it's also one of those things that can also be very unsafe.
I'm not a hiker anyway. But, like, you couldn't pay me to do that. Like, I'm not a hiking person. My idea of camping is in a hotel. I need an outlet for my flat iron. You know what I'm saying? But, like...
It's a dedication. It is a definite dedication.
I couldn't do it. And for so many reasons. And crypto and paranormal being the top two. It's like, well, I am not going to be eaten by the wolf man. You know what I mean? Somebody asked a question about, caffeinated Chrissy. I know you're not supposed to talk about them. Like, she's talking about native lore. So, the rule behind that is this. I'm talking about skinwalkers openly, right? Technically, skinwalkers is it's a different tribe than me, which is like Navajo predominantly, but it's other tribes too. It's southwestern tribes, basically, right? So I can talk about skinwalkers because they're not always directly inherited to Cherokee, because I'm Cherokee. So it downloads literally to the blood running through your veins, like quite literally. So I have to be careful, since I do have Cherokee blood, to the point where I am registered with my tribe, with my family, that any Cherokee lore or Cherokee cryptos or Cherokee specific like poltergeist activity, the Cherokee death cat, essentially I am connected to it by blood. So if I talk about those specifically, I will attract them by blood, if that makes sense. So, but although, if I'm being just very blatantly honest, because I've been in paranormal supernatural so long, I think that if you're indigenous, it doesn't matter what tribe you're like attached to via blood, you'll still attract that, if that makes sense. And I'm going to be honest, I'm a little nervous via skinwalkers. And I don't know why, because I'm not Navajo. But I just have a instinctual feeling with skinwalkers. Kat and I are pretty sure we experienced skinwalkers when we went and filmed the feature in February. I'm going to be real scared the SHIT out of me, because I've never experienced something like that. and she experienced it, and I think she has a little bit indigenous. I'm not sure which tribe she is, but we both and we were in Death Valley, middle of bum f nowhere.
Yeah.
Nothing is around. I'm like literally like like we're in the middle of nothing. Like, and when I mean nothing, I mean nothing. And like for miles, it's just gravel, right? And like mountainous areas with gravel. But we could hear things being like, hey, to us. Hey, hey. And I'm talking, it is just Kat and I and my Dodge Charger in the middle of Death Valley. And it was like, and it would get closer. Like you could hear it get closer. You could all of a sudden hear like something running across the like gravel and there's nothing. And like all of a sudden you're like, hey, 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 like all these like around us. Kat was like, we need to go. We need to go right now. She was like, I think it's because you're Cherokee, and they know it. That's what she kept saying. She has a Libra moon, and she's really attached to the other side. Like, she can channel stuff. And so she'll say really random stuff, and it scares the F out of me when she's, because I believe her when she says it. Because I've seen her predict things before it happens, and it scares me. And so when we were out in the middle of nowhere, so my point is like, I think that my family says to be careful with Cherokee legends, although I think that if you're indigenous, you're just automatically going to attract or attach anything of indigenous lore, if that's clear. Yeah, skinwalkers, man, that was messed up. It's really messed up, honestly. It creeped me out, and it was so weird too, because we were flying. I was getting drone footage for the pilot, or for the feature. It still hasn't been edited. And I had the drone out. I was the pilot for the feature, and it's a very expensive drone. So you don't want to like fly it in bad weather, you know what I mean? And so and it's like a process. You have to launch the drone. It has to configure GPS. Like, it's a process. So I'm doing drone footage, and when it's in the air, you only have like 14 minutes for that battery before it's dead. So, and Kat is like my co-pilot, meaning like, watch out for birds, watch out for cars. You know what? Like, I'm looking at the screen and the drone. You need to look for all of our other surroundings. So as I'm flying the drone, she's like, Krystal, there's something here. And I'm like, what do you mean? You know, like, because I can't look. When you're flying the drone, it's an expensive piece of equipment. She's like, we need to land the drone and leave right now. And then I start hearing like, hey, 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 like all around us. And she's like, we need to go. And I'm like, well, it's going to take like 2 more minutes to land the drone. You can't just like be like, okay, drone, land in my hand. Let's go home now. Like, that's not how it works. You know what I mean? So she's panicking as my co-pilot, which is not good. It's not good. You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, when she starts saying like, there's something wrong, we need to go, the wind picks up. And the drone, which she thought was also supernatural. She thought that was like related to the skinwalkers, because it had not been windy at all. And we'd been out there to just set up a drone takes 15 minutes. And so, and in that time you analyze the weather. Like, are there clouds around? Is it raining? You know what I mean? And it had been fine. It was great for a drone shoot. And all of a sudden the drone's in the air, and I was like, it's gonna crash, and there goes like $3,000. You know what I mean? Like, I'm waiting for it to wreck, and finally I was able to land it. But it was really scary. Yeah, like, I had never experienced the skinwalker like legend before, and they were in these hills, I think, that had little caves very far up, and like, it was, I don't know, man. That was not funny though. That was not. I mocked skinwalkers before, and I'm really regretting it, because that was not cool. And we think they followed us all the way to Tonopah, which was like a good 2-hour extra drive. Yeah, because we had experiences in Tonopah too. So it was not cool. The next one is Grimm's, which is you talk about this one, because this one was also fascinating to me, but I didn't like what happened to the dog. That made me upset.
That was a strange one, but I've heard similar folklore ideas of utilizing of animal use and everything. It's like one of those like, makes it squeamish, but it's one of those like, this feels like offshoot of similar folklore remedies or ideas and everything, and so almost like if you ever heard the story of like the first person buried in the cemetery is sometimes considered the guardian spirit of the cemetery now. It seems to kind of fall in line with that in some ways. I think I even made a note more of like, cats being buried in the floorboards of the house, like in the foundation stuff, supposedly brings good luck, not to the cat.
Not to the cat. That's like Egypt, though. In Egypt, when you were buried, the higher up you were on the chain, like, you know, if you were like a government official in Egypt back in the day, they would surround you with cat sphinx because they were supposed to guard you and protect you like in the afterlife. So if you look at when they're like right now undoing all these tombs and stuff in Egypt, they're finding just bodies and bodies of cats. And I'm like, Jesus, did you have to kill 50 cats to protect this person in the afterlife? My God, that poor cat.
I'm really hoping these cats were sacrificed, that this was natural process, but I'm just more probably telling myself that than anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, the animal sacrifices at Crossroads have also, so this definitely falls in line with similar methods and ideas and everything. I don't.
This is the only one that they have like more, like, I mean, I know that there's more than one Bigfoot, but like they say Grims, like there's more than one of these red-eyed creatures.
Well, when I saw the word Grim, I'm like, well, the only Grim I've ever heard of usually was like the omen of death, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm getting my stories crossed with like, I don't know, like Harry Potter or something.
It also made me think of hellhounds.
Yeah. But it's like, so supposedly it's a red-eyed beast that guards some Appalachian cemeteries. And actually, if you go through the mountains, you'll find like little dots of cemeteries that are usually like small family cemeteries that often aren't even recorded. They were on the land of the family that owned it, and that's where they chose to bury their members and whatnot. So you'll often come across these and everything going through the mountains. And legend has it that settlers throughout the region believe that burying the family dog alive in the cemetery would mean the dog spirit would morph into a Grim, a black dog with red eyes, and that the dog would then protect the graveyard. I don't know why.
Please don't bury your dog alive. Please just call me and I'll come pick it up. You know what I mean? Like I'll rehome it. Like let's just not do that. But like Jesus. So yeah, that's what created these Grims. And they say there could be cats too. They said that there's some Grim cats, which I found interesting. So
and very Pet Cemetery feel too.
You think that you've experienced them up in PA?
I don't think. I'm trying to think. No, I don't think I've seen anything like that. I've heard of people talking about like strange animal creatures or animal spirit-like things. Like this is definitely one of those more supernatural than cryptozoologic creatures for sure. And I feel more like I could see this more likely a dog spirit protector because of this would because a family dog that had connection to the family and then after passing might stick around with the family even beyond life and everything, and just kind of guards or watches over the family. That's where I feel more likely this dog spirit, this Grim would be than this supposedly burying the family dog alive in the cemetery.
Yeah, but okay, but I want to talk about that too because obviously Eilfie grew up pagan, still practicing, cats practicing. I used to practice witchcraft, and we hate how it's always portrayed in such a negative, dark way. It's always demonic. It's always you worship the devil. And like the thing that makes me laugh is like you're talking about these white settlers, people that were probably literally burying their dogs alive to supposedly, summon the spirit to protect the family in the graveyard. Do you realize that is also witchcraft? That's a sacrifice in a witchcraft. Like it just, the irony behind it to me, I love to point this out all the time, is like, oh, let's shun witchcraft, but yet we're all going to celebrate Christmas that was also created after witchcraft and like paganism. And you're just like, okay. Like it's always like a double net. You know what I mean? Like, so I like to point that stuff out.
Well, it's it's interesting too, because if you, especially when you get into the more of the folklore in the mountains and everything, you'll see a lot more folk remedies, folk magic, a lot of
Yes.
symptomatic of that's been picked up. Not just it's usually a combination of the settlers, the various cultures, communities coming into the area, and then a blend of sometimes the indigenous area, and just it becomes this interesting almost melting pot of these practices that have different origins connected to them. But sometimes there's also the thread of, usually you'll see Bible verses being incorporated in this folk magic as well.
But if it wasn't called witchcraft there, because that will make you go to hell. And it just drives me crazy. And I honestly feel like I've really picked up more of my native roots, especially since my mom's passed, and more than like the witchcraft side. Although I love witchcraft and I respect it, but I definitely do more like indigenous practices now. And I just wish we could get that under control, where it's not demonized like it constantly is on television. That just bothers me. So I just always like to point that out, is like, everybody practices magic. Do you blow a birthday candle out on your birthday? That's magic. You make a wish on your birthday? That's magic. Like, you don't realize you practice magic every day. Do you like have to stir, your tea or your coffee a certain direction with your sugar and your cream? That's also magic. Like, people don't realize it, and so I don't know. It's important because I think that it's positive. Manifestations are positive. Magic can be really, really positive. That's what I use it for. And I just wish people would use it more for that. And I guess maybe that's me looking at even all of these crypto characters, in a light of like, what if Bigfoot just wants to have a conversation, man? Like, he's not out to kill everybody. Like, I just like to look at the pros and cons, and like weigh in as the devil's advocate on both sides, because I just don't think it's always what we see on TV.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's one of those, like, I looked at the cryptos more as honestly with similar to any animal, where we're obviously going to probably freak it out more than we're freaked out about it, and there's no reason to come at it from a violent state. And also, most of the times, if the report sounds like it does do violence or a violent, it was more likely out of defense or protection or territory than malicious intent that we keep thinking to attach it to.
I agree. And then if you go, which we're already at like 2 hours, so we don't want to go through all this. It'll take a year and a half. But the amount of haunted locations through the Appalachian Mountains are just ridiculous. There's the Greenbrier Restaurant, the Devil's Courthouse, Lucy at Fork Road, which I think is cool because I love, entities on roads. I think that's a creepy one. The ghost guiding light that's at Nolan Creek Trail, like, that's really creepy and weird. Elkmont Restaurant, there's ghosts everywhere, which tells me, is the whole area with the Smoky Mountains a portal, or is it because it's one of the areas that hasn't been demolished by human hands? And it's still able to withhold like its earthly magic. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and there's honestly just the ghost towns and everything, because a couple of them that are still standing but totally abandoned. It's like, I just want to go there because it sounds so fascinating that you have these places that once were inhabited and now not, but they still have a vibe about them that definitely is like, I don't think everyone left.
Now there's one more that I kind of want to talk about, and it's called the Spearfinger, which is a Cherokee legend. It's essentially, she's a female creature, aquatic feature, so I would assume maybe slightly mermaid-esque, but she's a shapeshifter, and she likes to eat children, essentially, is her gig. She's Spearfinger, which I just think it's kind of cool and weird. And once again, if you're talking about these legends coming from tribes, which are hundreds of years old, it's just fascinating to me. There's so many tribal Cherokee, my blood. There's the Secret Lake, which is in the Smoky Mountains. It's where two Cherokees wandered too far into this blue hidden lake in the trees, and if you wander too close to it, you might like die in a pit of mud sort of thing. I don't know. I love stuff like this. It's really, really cool. There's a lot of UFO sightings in the Smoky Mountains.
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
But it makes sense, too, because I feel like there's a lot of places where a UFO could probably hide or, like, store the spaceship and everything that no one would ever find it, too.
No, it's true. If you were to land a spaceship in the Smoky Mountains, like, I don't know if, like, GPS would find you anyways. Like, once again, terrible service. Now, the last thing I want to end the stream on, just because, like, I know that people are thinking it and no one has said it, which is, there's also tales and legends of actual cannibals living in the Smoky Mountains, right? It's actually in all national parks. Like, we've seen those TikToks pop up, too. The one article that we kind of found on it is called Beyond the Pale, the Albino Cannibals of the Ghost Mountains. And it's basically this tale of weird people that are living in communities. This specific spot is in the Smoky Mountains of Pennsylvania, and they live in isolation, and they've learned like campfire and stuff, but like they will abduct people, and they're very pale, and they use people for sacrifices as essentially like night walking bloodsuckers that like eat their prey essentially, or the child stealing cannibals of the mountains. So it's interesting. So I guess that's where even what I experienced with going to Tennessee, where even the sheriff was like, yeah, you beware of not only the people, but you also beware of the creatures, in the night. So I don't know. I find it fascinating. I'm really, really happy we finally did this stream, because every time I see these TikToks pop up, I'm fascinated by the stories, but it's like, I need more information. You know what I mean?
For sure. I feel at this point too, when like you said before, when they're telling you don't go outside, don't follow if you hear your voice, just believe them, just trust them when they say that.
Mine was when my father was like, "There's a shotgun at every door," and I'm like,
this just got serious.
First of all, I don't even know how to use one. Let's start there. Yeah. And second of all, you're serious. And his house was huge. He had a wraparound porch on this house. It was massive. Oh my God, you guys!
Like this house and
stuff. This house, it's gone now. My dad my dad passed away June 7th, and he had a will. I'm an only child, so I was willed everything. So I've already gotten rid of everything's gone now. I was not going to go back to that house. Absolutely not. He left me several properties to get rid of. But that house in particular was formerly a doctor's home. And it was the only doctor in this area back in I think the house was built in 1801. It was very old, very old. And it had, I don't know what my dad was thinking when he bought this, to be honest with you, because once again, my dad believed in paranormal and stuff. And this doctor, it was one of the biggest houses in the area. It was a wraparound porch. That's how big it was very, what do you think of when you think of, I want a house with a white picket fence and a wraparound porch and 3 acres of land? That was this house, okay? It was that in your head. And very old, haunted beyond words. So since it was this doctor's house in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee in the 1800s, not to be morbid, but anytime people would die in the winter because they were in the middle of nowhere, the doctor built 3 cellars under this house that my dad owned, and they would store the bodies in the cellars until the ground was warm enough to bury them in the ground. So this doctor did everything. Like, he was, the surgeon, he was the dentist, he did everything under one roof basically, and he was also the mortician. And I was like, Dad, why are you living in that house? Like, there are hundreds of dead bodies under the house. What's wrong with you? And when I went there, because I had never actually seen it till he'd gotten sick, he must have had some experiences, which he never told me really much about any of them other than, oh yeah, it's haunted. That's what he'd say. But he had padlocked the cellars 16 times. I'm not even kidding you. And
Okay.
and I would say, like, did you store anything down there? Like, is there? He's like, no, I don't go down there. It's dark. You don't go down there. Like, it's because that's where this doctor would store the bodies for like 3 or 4 months until the ground was warm. And but he did. My dad had like 12 padlocks on each cellar door. There were 3 cellars under the house, and I had said when I was there with my mom is as bad as me. You know, like she's gone too, and I've done the podcast with her. But you should listen to her. But my mom's like, we should undo the padlocks and go down to the cellars. That was my mom, but we couldn't find the keys to all. There were so many padlocks, we couldn't find the keys to all the padlocks. And I'd asked my dad. I said, where did all the keys go? The padlocks. I threw them out. Nobody's gonna ever go down there unless they like. You'd have to get like a clamp jaw to cut all the padlocks off. So he was dead serious about.
Wow.
There were entities down there. I'm not saying Wolfman. I'm saying ghosts because of this doctor's house. But my mom and I would go in this house, and it was so horribly haunted because obviously this doctor did. It was a massive house. So there was wings of the house. So like there was like the main living wing of the house, and then he had several other wings where like one was a surgical wing and one was the pediatric wing. You know what I'm saying? And you went through each wing of the house, and it just felt like a totally different vibe. Like the surgical wing, like you knew a lot of people died in there. I mean, especially back in the day. Think about it. Like medicine wasn't where it is now. And then on top of that, for that energy in that house to be in the middle of the Smoky Mountains was just like, I don't know what. My dad's like, oh yeah, you can stay in there. My mom, like, I don't think so. Okay. There's 3 morgues padlocked under the house. I am not staying there. Like no thing. And Bigfoot's outside. Okay. And the Wolfman's down the street. And no, I'm good. So yeah, that. When he died, I knew I was not going to touch that house with a 10-foot pole, and I didn't. I sold it as is. I didn't even go and clear out his stuff. I didn't want to. That was an experience I don't need again. Thank you very much. So, yeah, imagine, just being in the Smoky Mountains in a house with morgues. I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm good.
So you have to deal with stuff outside and inside.
And then when I saw that he had padlocked it that much, that was enough. You'd be in there though, Eilfie, and like my mom and I were in there, like we were just like cleaning and picking up for him while he was at the he just had surgery, and we'd be in there. We didn't turn on the TV or anything because we just wanted to go clean up the house, and you could just hear footsteps above us everywhere, walking through the whole house, and I didn't know where the attic was. I had no idea. And you could just hear people walking. And my mom's like, dude, this house is so haunted. I was like, I know. Let's go. Like, it's so bad. I don't want to be here anymore.
Clean faster. Let's get
We
out
did.
here.
We did. Like, we were only there for like 2 hours. We were just like cleaning, and like got out and got all the trash out. We were like done. She's like, I just hope it doesn't follow us home. You know what I mean? And so I went to see my dad at the hospital the next day. Like, yeah, we cleaned the house. My mom's like, hey, like, where's the attic entrance? We could hear like someone walking up above. He's like, oh, yeah, there's no attic. And my mom was like, do you hear the footsteps too? And he's like, oh, yeah, you leave them alone. They'll leave you alone. And I'm like, cool.
Like, okay. I mean, you apparently you've came to agreement somewhere along the lines, apparently.
So long story short is not only am I weird and creepy into ghosts, but so are my parents. And clearly it runs in the family, Yeah, it's a generational thing, you know what I mean? So anyway, that was a great stream. Thank you guys so much for being here. Eilfie, I'm so glad you're back. How was your summer, by the way? Did it go well?
Yes, I think it went pretty well and everything. It was nice. It was pleasant summer, but I was definitely waiting for fall. Like, I am so done with this.
I know. I cannot wait to move out there with you guys. Like, I'm so excited. Thank you for researching everywhere that I'm today. Eilfie's like, so is there any new areas that you're looking at and considering houses? You know what I mean? So, Kat is way up in New Hampshire. I don't think I want to go that far north. I think I want to stay, like I said, 2 to 3 hours from New York. So, and more on the east side of Eilfie. I'll probably be about an hour from Eilfie, but that's okay. And yeah, I'm still looking for, that's still the goal. It's been the goal since March of 2022.
Yes.
Gotta get to PA with Eilfie so we can go in those caves. Just kidding. I don't know how I feel about that. You know what I'm saying?
I've never been a big cave person. It's one of those, like, if it's a big cave, maybe I'll go into a little bit of it, but
I'm not a cave. I'm not a splunking person. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I have seen people where they're like having to crawl, like, oh yeah, you just now crawl through this. I'd be like, oh, I'm
absolutely not. If a spider gets in my hair, I'm done. I'm checked out. If a bat flies by me, I'm also done. No, I'm not.
Oh, you're gonna love the wildlife of PA. Then.
I'm not a bug person. I'm not a, I like hiking, not in caves. I like ATVs and dirt bikes, just not in caves. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not a lake person. I don't swim in lakes. I don't do amoebas in my ears. You know what I'm saying? I'm not.
Well, you also have the towns under lakes too around here.
See, but I do miss nature though, because Vegas just doesn't have any of that. You know what I'm saying? So I miss seasons. I miss fall. I'm jealous you're in fall right now. So.
Yeah, come here faster.
Soon. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Eilfie, thank you for being here. I love you as always. You're amazing. Isn't Eilfie great, guys? And also make sure that you check her out on Discovery Plus, right? Paranormal State. We all need to go watch that episode. We need to go watch it because that's so cool that she got to go down there. Eilfie, thank you so much again. We love you.
Thank you all for joining us.
And just thank you guys for being here. Missed you guys so much. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast. This will be uploaded on the new YouTube channel. I'm also doing 15-minute segments like you guys asked. So I did one for last week. I'll be doing another one this week, and it will be uploaded to all streaming services, major streaming services, including Spotify, Apple, you name it. If you can't find it, go to ghostgirldiaries.com. Thank you guys for being here. And as always, we will catch you guys next time. Good night, guys.
Back from the dead.